Okay.
Let's go. You and me, baby. Used to have. All right. I'm actually, just going to chill out.
Oh, it's the leg on the
It's the leg on the
couch.
couch. I don't know if they can see that in frame.
That's how you know. That's how you know.
That's how you know it's the end of the year.
It's that weird period between Christmas and New Year's where anything goes.
No one knows what time of day it is. No one knows what you're supposed to be doing.
Nope.
Yeah. It's one of those.
Yep.
So, speaking of the end of the year, welcome to Inframe podcast. I've absolutely lost count of how many episodes we do.
This is episode 6. This would be episode 6.
This would be episode 6.
Yes.
Wow, we made it to 6, guys.
Yeah. After like the whole year.
Well, yeah, I mean, no, we've got a few things lined up. But I figured today we'd kind of talk about kind of our goals or what we'd like to see ourselves do in 2022. I mean, sure, that can range from anything creative, business side, personal side, whatever, you want to let your audience in on.
Yeah.
And let our 5 friends that watch this podcast know. Actually, no, thank you for watching if you have watched this or listened to this podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Yeah.
Zeik, okay, let's take a step back for a sec. How would you sum up 2021?
2021. Well, I would say 2021 was definitely a year of growth for sure. It was like 2020 was the year that kind of disrupted everything in like many respects. So I think 2021 was just sort of like trying to readjust and find how to be creative in this environment. And I think it kind of 2020 kind of like leveled the playing field for everyone and kind of just allowed people to experiment with different things. So I think 2021, if I was to really summarize it, is really just sort of experimentation, trying some new stuff, kind of going beyond what I'm normally used to, really, and what I'm comfortable with. So yeah, I think that's where I would place that. What about you?
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, 2021 was an interesting year in the sense that I actually did a lot. And I know like the pandemic's probably a hard time for a lot of creators, cutting into businesses, but I found that I shot the most I have ever shot, even with the restrictions and things like that, than I have ever before, which is a good thing. And it also comes with a lot of lessons learned, like how to balance your life.
Yeah.
I think, shooting consistently, I have consistent clients that I think I shoot with weekly, right? So there's that plus my 9 to 5. And then the stuff that I'm sort of more, I don't want to say passionate about, but the stuff that I kind of want to experiment with, that also I had to find space to do that, whether it was like the short film that we did this past summer or music videos or doing something that's a little more, involved was kind of hard to work into, I find. But I will say, like, I did learn a lot, working with different types of clients. And I think from that perspective, 2021 was a good year for me to learn that side of photography, like client relations and sort of, interacting with different people with different creative needs and trying to figure out if you can provide that solution for them. So for me, I think on the business side of things, it was a good year, growth wise, and also just understanding, how I can best provide my services, at least on the creative side. I will say though, it was hard to have a 9 to 5 and also shoot consistently week over week. But it's paying the mortgage. So I'm not complaining.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, no, I think that's a big one, is trying to be consistent as a creator while still maintaining, like your day job or whatever it is that kind of keeps you going.
Sir, you're gonna have to talk into the mic.
I'm gonna talk into the mic like this.
Whoa.
Am I clipping now?
You should be like 5 to 10 centimeters away from the mic, and holding it in that sort of.
What's that in inches?
I don't know what that is in inches, bro.
Is that like this? Is that enough?
Yeah. That's good, but kind of have it at the source of the audio,
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna be It's like I'm holding a wine glass, really.
It is, but that mic is a beautiful mic. I will say it's the Warm Audio Junior 47, kind of modeled after the Neumann 47, which is a very, very, very nice mic. But a fraction of the cost, and I would say you get about 70% of the Neumann 47 sound.
Nice.
Sorry, I'm a bit of a audio nerd as well.
No, it's cool.
I just gotta take. I have to teach Zeke how to place long objects in front of his face.
Bro. Pause. Pause. Okay,
Yeah.
and we're back.
Okay, and we're back. Okay, so based on your view of 2021, would you say it went as expected given everything that kind of happened with the world and with the creative industry, or did you expect something different?
I went into this year without expecting anything, for the most part, just because 2020 was it was a wash in many ways, that I didn't want to go into 2021 and be like, all right, like this is the year we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. I think I went into it with more of just, all right, let's go with the flow and try to see where things end up and try to make the most of it. Because if you don't try to make the most of a bad situation, you're kind of a duck in sitting water, really. So to answer your question, I wasn't really expecting much of this year. But one thing led to another. Like, I think we had one project which kind of led to another, and then that led to another, and just continued on. And then from there, I think, we started thinking bigger with our stuff.
Yeah. And I think that was the key for us. We'd send each other voice notes over Instagram about, hey, I have this idea.
Yeah.
And then we're like, budget.
But yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's the thing. I think this year, because I didn't go into it with any expectations of anything, a lot of it was more so, okay. A lot of it was more intentional, I will say. I was more intentional with my projects. And aside from that, because it was more intentional, I was able to kind of work with ideas better, and not just my own ideas, but also collaborative ideas. Like Twayne, like you've messaged me multiple times, like, hey, I've got an idea for something. And I don't think we actually ever got around to most of them.
No, it's just came down to time. And I think that was part of me understanding and balancing how to take on clients or take on a bit more work, but balancing the rest of my life with that too, right? So
yeah.
I'll say I didn't expect that out of 2021 to have the business I did, but I'm thankful for it for sure. I definitely learned a lot. And yeah, like you said, going project to project, there's things that I didn't think I'd be doing in 2021 or people would be paying me to do in 2021. Like, I didn't think people would pay me to color grade in 2021. I was like, okay, if I get good at this, give myself a year and a half to just absolutely learn this, maybe I can start charging for this in 2022 or 2023. There's some things I didn't expect I'd be doing in 2021. I'll say like I didn't expect to DP my first short film in 2021.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Jordan and Zeke, for putting your trust in me.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I did not realize I'd get put into the director role this year. It was definitely never something that crossed my mind, like, oh, you're gonna direct something like a moving picture or something like that. And this year it just happened, like, out of the blue. The situation just called for itself. I was like, I think the way that it kind of led into that was me being like, all right, I can't really film and edit this, but I do have the vision for it, so maybe I can just direct it. And then from there, people started being like, oh, you could direct this, you could direct that.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. Like, and I think it just goes to show that, you kind of grow out of thinking you can do things yourself, and you realize that, okay, I have a vision, or someone comes to you, is like, I have this, like, can you put this to paper and help me express this vision or this piece of work? And I think that's really when you start realizing that this industry is kind of shaped around teams and the energy you have between all departments, whether it's talent, actors, actresses, the art department, cast, crew, cinematography, gaffer, script, like that synergy is really what will drive your success, at least in the film industry. So, which is kind of where I'm trending to, at least with my work.
Yeah, it's all about who, not how, really.
Yeah.
I mean, you get to a certain point, like obviously, when you're first starting off as a creative, you do everything yourself. You kind of become like a what's what's that phrase called? I'm a jack of all trades. You
Yeah, but
know,
you know what? Okay, but you know what the saying is, right?
yeah, it's a jack of all trades. It's a master of none, but
Still better than a
the master
master
of
of
one.
one.
100%. Yeah, that's the full thing. So I think when you're getting started, you're a jack of all trades. You're trying to do everything, but then you start to feel out where your capabilities kind of hit their limit, without you trying to go through like a crazy sort of learning curve, right? Like once you hit that learning curve, you can either choose to continue on with that learning curve, or you can say, maybe this is where I draw the line and I hire somebody and expand your team. And then you start talking to people, you start meeting other creatives, and that's how you start building your team really, and becoming like making a name for yourself within the circle of, this industry.
Yeah, I think that's so important, and
Yeah.
I mean, of course, everyone realizes that at different parts of their career, but I think it's a good thing to realize just so you can grow creatively, and others around you can also share in your successes as well, because you're going to need a team to be successful.
Yeah.
Speaking of 2021, 2022. Of course, right now we don't know what that looks like with a new variant and all that kind of stuff.
It's looking like December of 2020 again.
Right?
Much.
Absolutely. It's kind of crazy, and so I don't know if at least Ontario has any limitations on employment or work for film and TV and creative and freelance and that kind of stuff, but it's looking like we're going to have to navigate the same waters. But despite all that, what are some of your kind of goals for 2022? Like, if I could, like, of course you have your big goals, and then like I guess you could kind of go into detail, like, okay, what are some of the steps you'd be taking to achieve those bigger goals?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing really is going into 2022 without expectations. That was something I'm glad I did last year. I made that conscious decision. All right, we're going to go into this year not necessarily blind, but more open to things that could happen. Especially after the year that we've had, I'm definitely more open to whatever comes my way this time around. The other thing too is definitely looking back at the ideas we had 2021 and being like, okay, what can we start pulling off the shelf or pulling from the back burner? Because ultimately, like, those ideas were birthed from the thought process of creating and doing the things that we were thinking of doing during this year. So I think going into 2021, my main goal really would be to start pulling those projects from the back burners and starting to say, okay, here's what we can do to practice, to learn, to expand. Because, you never know where those projects are going to lead. They're going to lead somewhere, or maybe they don't lead anywhere, but it definitely gives you a learning experience.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's important too, to recognize things that you may not have finished in 2021 that you wanted to get done, but you couldn't because of something that came up, or, the situation we're in, whatever it is. And like revisiting that, not just kind of letting them be like, oh, it's last year's thing. You kind of want to just be like, oh, okay, maybe I can resurrect this idea. Let me put something on paper and see where it takes me.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing to keep in mind, because like, I think if you hadn't mentioned that, I probably would have like let some of the ideas I had in 2021 go.
Yeah.
But maybe I was like, yeah, you know what? Why not just take the first half of the year, see what's possible, see what, if people are down to collaborate on this thing, and if we have money for it, or if I can find money for it. So it's those kind of questions that you can kind of like ask yourself. And I think for me personally, like, there's two things I know I definitely want to do in 2022, which is shoot a lot more video content.
Okay.
But not just like shoot video content, be like part of the creative process. Like I would say, like, yeah, for sure, I'd love to be a DP. but then also it's like, okay, maybe I could see myself in a producer role or a director role. Like, could I do that? And I was like, sure, maybe. But ideally, I would like to sort of be behind the camera. I mean, I guess I could operate, but I don't know. I tend to be a operator DP, but if I can have the opportunity to shoot more commercial type stuff, more short films, of course, those take time, right? Like you have to budget your time accordingly, and like depending on what it is, it could be a passion project. You might not be getting paid a lot, and it's like, okay, you still got bills to pay, but for me, it's trying to find those projects that I'm going to be really excited about, that I know I can really put my mark on as a creator, and maybe try out a few things that I've kind of been working on, like on my own, with whether it be lighting or camera angles or camera moves, and see if it fits a certain story or project. So I think for me, I definitely want to DP more and sort of be in charge of that department on a commercial shoot or a film shoot for sure. And I guess the second thing is being a colorist. Like, I don't know what it is about color. Well, I do know what it is. It's the science behind it, because that's all I ever talk about with anybody and everybody.
If you ever go on a coffee date with this guy or brunch, oh man, like,
I mean,
he'll start talking about color spaces and you'll get lost in talking about color spaces.
I'll get lost in it simply because it's such a science.
Yeah,
it is. I'm a scientist by trade. Like, it's more physics than it is like, organic chemistry or biology, right?
That's why physics is the best. Physics is the best branch of science.
Says the engineer.
It is, though. Like biology, what is that?
Well, biology turns into physics and chemistry turns into physics when you're in university.
Physics governs all. I will say that.
Entropy. Chaos. But yeah, like I'll say it interests me simply because of like, there is so much that you have to consider when it comes to color and color science. Like, it is actually a science because you basically, what you're doing is you're taking something that's analog, you're digitizing it, but then you have to have a standard for digitizing that thing that is applicable to a wide variety of people. Like, and I think that's the thing that I enjoy about it, is that sort of science under the hood, what really, gets perceived as red or blue, and like, how can we use this color space to our advantage to get a certain look on a film, or how do we actually get a film look using the tools that we have today, right? So I think those are two things, like, operating, being a DP, and color grading. And I feel like those are some of the two most expensive things to do in film.
Yeah, those are. But you know what? It's probably the most fun to do.
Oh,
like,
it's
color
fun.
grading. I wish I knew how to color grade, just because
it's fun. I mean, it's not hard to learn. I don't think it's hard to learn. I think there's tons of resources out there. I mean, there are tons of resources out there, but you have to learn from the right resources.
Yeah. Like, it boils down to that curve, that learning curve that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
I hit a point where I was like, I could either learn this, or
you could hire somebody.
I could just like bring this
guy. So
guy
Zeik just hires me to color grade everything.
I mean, hey, it's a lot better, and I'm able to communicate what I want. Yeah. And then he's able to.
I just turn the knobs.
Yeah, he gets the profile or whatever it is going, and I'm like, all right, like that looks pretty darn close. Now tweak this, or like change this curve, or Yeah.
So I mean, I truly have fun with that kind of stuff, and I think they overlap because they both have a very scientific component to it. Image making and sort of color rendition and representation. So those are kind of my two big goals for 2022. How do I get there? I don't know. We shoot more stuff.
Hey, those projects, man.
Color grade more things.
We're gonna take some projects off the back burner and be like, all right, let's go. Let's take this.
Okay, let's go.
Let's go. Also, clients, if you guys are watching this, please hire us. Yeah.
That reminds me, I should probably put together a 2021 reel. Like, I'm sitting on so much footage.
I have my timeline staring at me in the face whenever I'm at
in
home.
Premiere Pro.
Yeah,
Premiere
Pro.
DaVinci Resolve.
No, not DaVinci Resolve. It's staring at me in the face. It's like, all right, you didn't make one for 2020. You got to make one for 20. Well, a lot of our stuff we can't release yet. So
yeah, I mean, well,
yeah.
No, there's I guess the short film, because like we're getting ready for festival season and stuff like that. But
there's
other stuff.
There's stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I guess what I mentioned goal wise earlier was a little too broad. I think the one thing I do want to focus in on this upcoming year is, studying art a little bit more, studying history. We all have our favorite Instagram photographers and whatnot, but a lot of the directors that sounds weird. A lot of the directors that I kind of follow and look up to, they take a lot of their inspiration from fine art, or they take it from modern art, or whatever it is, and they have such a rich background when it comes to that. Even listening to Jordan Harvey's podcast, a lot of the people that she interviews on her podcast, they like to refer back to fine art. They like to refer back to all these other materials that have been done in the past, and it just adds so much depth to their content.
It's kind of crazy to think about too. Like, I think I heard one of her podcasts with Jill Bogdanowicz, who's a colorist at Company 3.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, like, she was a painter before she became a colorist. And I was like, well, I can see the transition and why.
Yeah.
And it's actually so interesting to see how many directors and even producers or cinematographers take inspo from fine art. And I mean, like, where else do you learn about art if it isn't art history and looking at other people's work, right? And I mean, work that has been produced in the past, yes, but also like new work, like, because everyone's gonna have their own style and their own way of doing things. Like, I look at a director like Bradford Young, like, so radical, so different, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, he's not a Roger Deakins or a Terrence Malick or anything like that, but I think even looking at how those people are changing the industry as well, I think is really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I came to that realization, when Jordan and I were talking about the short film, and this was before we started talking to the crew and before we started talking to cast. He gave me a list of movies to watch, and I started watching those movies. I started trying to pay attention more to stuff that's all around me, really, like billboards, stuff that I had done already. Like, I would go to Indigo and I would look at magazines and
love that,
do that
before
kind of thing.
COVID. I could spend a whole afternoon in Indigo in the art section. I
missed that. I missed pre-COVID when you could just sit in a bookstore, pour through a bunch of books and stuff and draw inspiration. I end up, like, I have a stack of magazines that I've bought over the years, or like coffee table books, just because, I like to refer back to them. But going back, when Jordan sent me that list of movies, then I started looking at other movies that I could watch, and I started looking at other directors and that kind of thing. And I think as someone who's a creator, you also need to digest a lot of art and content and material that's been produced beforehand, so that you can kind of start to get a taste for what you like. So I think that's my big thing, is really just getting a taste for what I like, and really honing that in, and getting a little bit more acquainted with some of the more subtle things, maybe some stuff that's not so subtle, and just kind of adding that to the repertoire, really.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I have a bit of a different view.
Okay.
Because as much as I watch different cinematographers or movies or types of movies, I don't know if I have a specific style. Well, I do have a style, and I know what I would do in a certain situation, but at the same time, I think I'm also adaptable to the needs of the story. Right? Like, as much as, like, if someone came to me and was like, in 2022, and someone came to me and was like, hey, I have this job for you, and if I, they're like, okay, can you do this, this, and this with the image? I'm gonna have to do what they asked for, but would I want to backlight it and wrap the key and neg the shadow side and create this nice creamy contrast? Yeah, I would want to do that because that's how I shoot, but that may not be the specific ask. Yeah. And like, I may draw inspiration from, like, a Cronenweth film because that dark cinematography, that's like what I love. That's my sort of style. But at the same time, like I can't take that into every single job that I do in 2022.
No.
I would love to. If everyone hired me to do that, that would be amazing if I could do dark and down played cinematography. But like I know what I like, don't get me wrong. And I know what I would love to implement in shoots next year and in future years. But I also think that, you know, I don't know, like I think being adaptable is also a key thing for me in 2022. Just as much as I know what I like and like things that I could watch over and over again. Yeah. But
well, I mean, here's the thing with that I've discovered with the both of us this past year working together is that we have a pretty extensive toolbox. You know, like when I was on set, you know, there's a lot of situations where we're trying to figure something out, and I'll look at Twayne, I'll be like, all right, we got to do this, you know, like based on, like, for example, like Heartbreak Hotel, you know, let's light it up like this, or, you know, like we'll pull something from a project that we've done before or a movie or something that we've seen, and we'll be like, all right, this is the play. And it's like having a playbook in your head almost.
Yeah, you ever watch the NFL and the quarterbacks have this little thing on their wrist? Oh my, like, forgive me for anyone that's an NFL fan. I don't know what that's called, but I feel like those are plays that they're probably calling from.
Probably.
And it's like they open it and it's like, okay, this is what I got to do at like, you know, 2 and 10 or whatever. And I'm like, okay, what? So, and that comes with experience, right? You know, and I think if you only ever did one type of cinematography, you may struggle to find solutions for problems that you would have when you're asked to deliver something different. You know, it's, if you think about it, like think about a ski hill. You know, if you go down a ski hill, there's tracks made. The second time you go down a ski hill, you can use those tracks and you'll find it easier to get down that slope or that ski hill. But if you're asked to make a new path, there's going to be some resistance, you know, and you're going to find it a bit harder to go down when you have to make that new path. So if you find that you can make many different paths to offer you the best chance of finding a solution in a unique situation, you have to do it, you know, and that comes into adaptability. And I think that's also a goal for me in 2022. Put myself in as many different situations as possible so that if you ever have to solve a problem in a unique situation, you may have the skill set and tools and thought process to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because I think that's what it means to be a creator, really, is to...
We're engineers. We engineer solutions for our clients.
I mean...
Tell me I'm wrong.
I mean, there's a set of standards for doing things.
I have a very particular set of skills.
Let's be real, all right? You know, there's a certain way to do things, but there's ways to break rules, you know, and I think that's where experimentation really comes into play, and still being creative. Like, yeah, sure, we can work on all these projects and stuff for clients and stuff, but I think it's still important to have a creative every now and then that really just kind of pushes you to your limit. You know, maybe it's something that you haven't done before, and that way you get to learn on it. You can fuck up. I will say that you can't fuck up on client work.
No, you can't.
But you can fuck up on a creative. You know, have you ever done that? Fuck up on a creative, and you're like, well, I could have done this better. But then, what have you learned from that?
I don't know if I have. Like, I've had creatives where I've like not been happy with the result, but then the person loved it, and I'm like, oh,
no, but I mean, like, you personally, like, as a creative, you have a vision in your head, and you're like, okay, I'm aiming towards this, I'm working towards this overall look. You shoot it, etc. Everyone could be happy with it, but deep down inside, you know. Like, you know.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny because I think I've done that on a client shoot. I fucked it up.
Don't do it on client shoots.
But they asked for a specific thing, and I thought I could do it with like one strobe. I couldn't. So that was my own learning experience. So I mean, I think even in 2022, I think creatives are going to be important. Like, I think Zeik and I have emphasized that it's always important to have creatives to allow that space, right? So I think always, even if you are getting busier with client work, find that space to do creatives and things that you want to do, you know, because when you're working for a client, you are catering to their needs. Yes, of course, with your own style, but at the end of the day, kind of the client's final say, right? You know, but then again, like, I've also learned this year that if you have an open dialogue with your clients, and sometimes your clients might realize something that they never would have thought of, and they're like, oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, let's try that.
Yeah.
So that's also why they pay you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I always think of it like when you go to a fancy restaurant, right? The menu is always changing. And the chef behind the scenes, like, during service, they're consistent. They have to be consistent with their work. You're expecting a certain quality to the food. But in their downtime, they're like tossing things and they're going out, they're tasting different things, they're exploring, and then they bring that all back to the kitchen. So when it comes to dinner service, they've designed a menu that they know they can produce. And I think it's
the same thing in the film industry, bro. Like cinematographers will shoot millions of tests, at least back in the day when film was the main format. Oh, yeah. Millions of tests with different lenses, with different filters, with different film stocks. Like, then only you would go to your producer and your director and show them the tests, and then you make a decision. At least that's what I would assume, right? But hours and hours of experimentation.
Yeah, you do that, and then you come up with something new, and you're like, all right, this is something that I'm going to present. And that's where you keep things fresh with your clients, because I've seen it way too many times where a client has come up to me and told me, hey, look, I used to work with this person and they did the exact same thing for all their clients. And so what can you do? And I'm like, all right, this is a challenge. Like, I have my work cut out for me, and that's the last thing you want is you don't want to keep doing the same thing over and over again for everyone that you work with. You kind of want to switch it up. You kind of want to experiment, add something new, and be dynamic. And that's ultimately what it really means to be a creator. You're not just hammering out the same thing all the time.
Sometimes you're asked to.
I
won't get into it in this episode.
Sometimes you're asked to, but like, if a client asks me one thing and another client is asking me for, like, if I have two clients and they're asking me for a logo, I'm not going to do the same thing for both. It's going to be bespoke. It's going to be tailored. It's something that I'm experimenting with, and I'll send that in the draft sheet. So yeah, you definitely have to experiment for sure.
Yeah, that's 2022. Yeah. All right. If there's one thing that you could see yourself doing in 2022, but you think it might be a little bit out of reach, what do you think it is? It's like on a whim, like if someone asked you to do it tomorrow, you'd be like, yes, absolutely. And this would be like your dream project
for 2022.
Yeah, if you could do it. Like, that's just a shy, you think is a bit unattainable, but it could happen.
That's a hard one. I got to think on that one.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that I've been trying to work towards is trying to get more campaign stuff. I think it's really just having an idea for a campaign and fleshing it out. Like, it's not just, white backdrop, this and that. It's something a little bit more creative. I think that's something that I want. Maybe take myself back into photography, because over the last little while it's been a little bit more out of photography. It's been more videography, directing, graphic design, that kind of thing. So I think going back into photography and then fleshing out an idea, that's something I wouldn't say it's not attainable, but I just really got to go out there and find that client that wants that, or creative, either one. So what about you?
Fair enough. Probably to shoot an agency commercial, I would say. Like,
okay,
it's not entirely unattainable.
Yeah,
I think it's possible, but I know it's hard because in Toronto the agency scene's so well established, and there's so many other talented cinematographers already out there that already have relationships that they've built. But I think if I could do that, like an agency shoot, like shooting like a Lululemon campaign or a Nike campaign.
Yeah.
Like something that would be on TV or that you would see before a movie.
Okay.
Like if I could shoot that type of content.
All right. Okay.
That would be.
So we're both thinking like, all right, we're going to be on billboards type thing.
Yeah.
We're going to be.
Hey, manifest it now, man.
Hey man, Dundas Square, watch out. One billboard's me. with my photo campaign, and then the other billboard is like
How sick would that be though?
That would be
like,
amazing.
How sick would it? You got Zeke's photo campaign. I've got like a video commercial playing on the
that'd
other
be
screen.
sweet.
And then we can argue who has the bigger screen. Like
That's like what happened this year? Drake and Kanye.
Kanye, the beef.
Yeah. So like, if you ever noticed back when that release was happening, they never had both their ads running at the same time. It was always like, it would be Drake's, and then all the billboards would switch over to Kanye, and then it would switch over. And I think that'd be really funny if that happened to us. It's like all Zeke stuff and then like Twayne stuff.
That'd be kind of funny. I mean, you know what? It'd be funny though if we actually got the same brand, but you did photos and I did.
That would be cool.
But like under this, like, but we'd be under like a creative director. And then there'd be a director, there'd be like an overall like brand director. And then there'd be like a director for the video shoot and then a director for the photo. And like we'd get hired as like either a cinematographer or operator or like photographer or something like that, right?
I mean, here's the thing is that like if somebody approaches me or if I find someone, I'm always being like, all right, are you guys looking for video too? Because I know a guy.
Hey, yo.
That's how it is, you know? So creative directors, if you're listening in on this podcast,
hey, we come in twos.
Our IGs are in the bottom. Our emails are in the links in the IG. So hit us up, please. 2022.
And I think that's going to be it for this episode of Inframe Podcast. Yeah. We will see you guys in the new year.
The new year.
It's already the new year.
Right. This is going to be released in the new year. So thanks for listening for all of 2021 with the number of podcast episodes that we did have. And we look forward to sending you guys or posting more episodes this year. Until next time.
Bye.